This one is a loosie. To explain, we recorded an episode over a month and a half ago documenting our thoughts and opinions on AI's potential impact on security engineering. But due to life getting in the way, I wasn't able to edit and release it. However, due to recent news about AI agents escaping sandboxes and hacking companies, we still think the topic deserves thinking about. And so we finally present the episode to you now for your consideration. We hope you enjoy it, and it gives you something to think about as well.
This is Not Your Crypto Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to Not Your Crypto Podcast with myself, Justin, and Michael. Today, we're going to have a chat. This one isn't going to be a structured episode. This is going to be what we think about what is happening. And in terms of what is happening, let's paint a picture. We do a lot of research, as you all know, when we do our podcast. And one thing we started to notice about a lot of the previous hacks that we discussed in Web3 land was that they started to all follow a pattern in that a lot of them were AI assisted. The scale of which they were basically orchestrated, the way in which they were built, there was a lot of smart contracts spun out, and there was some boilerplate code that obviously tied back to an AI agent of some sort. So today, that got us thinking. We decided that we wanted to take a look at AI in general, more importantly, how we think it's going to impact the security models and the security approaches, security strategies inside and outside of corporate spaces, because we have theories. Because not only is it possible for attackers to spend tokens, it's now looking like companies are going to have to spend tokens, and those token bills are getting quite high as it is. But yeah, so that's basically what we're going to talk about today, is what I think and Michael's opinion about how AI is impacting security strategies inside the corporate space. Michael, what do you think? What do you see? Because you're actually still in the corporate space, mind you. How do you see these models, these specifically these cybersecurity focused models, such as Mythos, which got a lot of hype a few months ago, basically had elevated to nation state status in terms of security and critical national infrastructure. And then Daybreak, which I think OpenAI released a few weeks ago as well. They're basically building, these AI companies are basically building cybersecurity specific AI models, and they're now selling them as cybersecurity products, which I didn't see coming. What do you think? Are you a buyer, a seller?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a lot of these model releases have a narrative that goes with them when they're released. It seems like now, right? That's part of the like release cycle of these models is, oh, this model's really good at this. Here's a bunch of examples. Here's like video clips. Here's evidence, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it was weird that security, like cybersecurity, I guess, became the dominant narrative around AI models, really, right? When Mythos was released in particular.
Yes.
That, like, yeah, I don't know. That felt weird to you? That felt weird to me.
That felt incredibly weird. It felt, and I'll be honest, as a lifelong security professional, I took that one personally. I did, because it felt, the reason why it felt weird is because it felt like they'd spotted an opportunity to borderline prey on everyone's assumed fear. Because with the advent of AI, people were obviously scared about security around AI in of itself. Remember, that was the talk. That was all the big essays. I think we even talked about a Project 2027. I can't remember the name of the URL, where they basically threat modeled what could happen if we reached AGI and how we would get there without even realizing it. So security around the models themselves was a big deal. But then alongside that was that we are going to get to artificial general intelligence at some point, and these all powerful models, and they will be able to break everything. How about we use them not to break everything, to secure everything? There's a business opportunity here. So it felt disingenuous when the Mythos marketing really ramped up. To me, I looked at it from the outside and was like, okay, yes, everyone has vulnerabilities. I'm pretty sure what Mythos is doing is just saying all your vulnerabilities now need to be fixed, as opposed to perpetually risk accepted. That was what I assumed was really happening. But they made it seem like this big thing. And then they had the meetings with Bank of America, central banks and things like that. And everyone was like, it's super scary, etc. And so that felt weird. That Mythos marketing did not rub me up the wrong way, but it did raise questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I think a lot of people had, various emotional reactions to it, which makes sense. Yeah, baseline for me is even accepting this next generation of frontier models, even accepting Mythos, Daybreak, whatever, the current publicly available models and the publicly available models, even a generation before them, are extremely capable at finding vulnerabilities. Like that is not really in question.
Yeah.
They're extremely capable at finding vulnerabilities. But like especially if you enable them to do that within your own code base in various ways, like, you know, setting up skills files correctly, configurations correctly, managing context certain ways, whatever, giving them, you know, ways to test and all this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, the I think in some ways the future that people are worried about, that was part of the marketing push and part of the narrative around that next generation of frontier models was already the reality. Kind of like one of those futures here, but not evenly distributed kind of things, right?
Yeah.
And we were starting to see the effect of that show up in a number of different places. So we can talk about where that effect was showing up, because Web3 is one of those places where that effect was absolutely like early in showing up, I think.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that, you know, there's other thoughts more generally around like, one of the weird things to me about security in general is that there is a sense in which, if you look at it extremely philosophically, it's like unnecessary in a way, right? Like in a way, like all security spend is waste, because if people just didn't do bad things, then then it wouldn't be necessary, kind of thing, right?
Okay, that's fine.
I don't know that I have this like super well thought out, or that I'm going anywhere specific with this.
No, it's fine.
We'll go for a second.
Let's go.
There's a sense in which it is like attacks in a way on the economy. That starts to feel even weirder the more you like capitalize the labor of security work, because then it directly becomes like token spend, right? Like, you know, one of the economic narratives about AI is labor becoming capitalized through token spend, right?
Yeah.
So that starts to feel even weirder in a way that I don't have thought out or fully understand, when it's just like a tax that is very directly related to spend and to capital.
I really like your idea of it being a tax. I disagree with your philosophical positioning of it, in that I think, because as we've said, you and I have both agreed with this previously. We believe that technology should be there to serve humans and not the other way around. And humans come in all shapes and forms and sizes, and more importantly, with all types of intentions. And so to me, it's almost like it's a necessary spend, because not everyone comes to your platform product with good intentions. And when you centralize data, we live in a world where we've centralized data.
But if they just had good intentions, you know?
Only if they had good intentions. But at the end of the day, my good intention could be your bad intention. It's all about positioning, I guess. So that's where it gets philosophical for me. But then also, you've got to realize we've incentivized data to actually have value. And so people are always going to try and get access to that data through nefarious means. So it is a tax. But I would reframe it from a tax, from almost like to a cost of doing business, which I guess a tax is anyway, I guess. In a way, it's a cost of goods kind of thing. I mean, I've got to pay for shipping, so you got to pay for security. Like, there's no two ways about it. At the end of the day, if you want your product to be secure, where it gets, where I can pull on that thread though with you and can't start to agree with you, is security is in a weird space, because it was, and tried to break out. It was almost like, we're getting inside baseball, as Canadians like to say. We had separate engineers, right? It still is seen as a separate engineering discipline from your average coder, from your average infrastructure software engineer, and so forth. And I still actually largely agree with that, although that argument has come under attack a lot. In fact, in my entire career,
the whole time.
If you're a security engineer, why aren't you a coder? And if you're a coder, why can't they think like security engineers? Turns out they just don't. It's just one of those things. If you're a security, and having actually worn both hats, as you and I actually have, both when we work together and now externally, when I'm thinking of getting something working, I'm not necessarily thinking of its security posture at the same time. I just can't hold those two examples in my same head.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's actually what gave me, in fact, when I was a senior pen tester, this is something I used to give junior pen testers a piece of advice about. Here's some free advice. I was like, you're coming in as a pen tester hacking websites. Have you ever built one? Because one of the exercises I once did ages ago, which was, I was like, I'm going to build a website, take one of my average size reports, which would have 8-9 findings in it for a standard Web2 app, and try and implement, and this was before a lot of frameworks were around doing this out of the box, and try and implement every one of my recommendations. Oh my God, Michael. I did it. It took me like a good few afternoons when I was on the bench and didn't have a client site to go to, but it was painful. And I got a massive amount of empathy for your average dev, because I'm like, oh, and I'm just flinging out these findings like, oh, can you do complex things on your passwords? Are you make sure you're encrypting at rest? Are you doing all this? And I'm like, you got to configure all these things. And then your app suddenly slows down and you're like, what? So I see the tax there. I don't see the tax in the existence of security programs themselves, but I definitely see the tax in effort. And now I think the effort has kind of mutated with the presence of AI we're not even talking about AI, we're talking about token spend. We're not talking about frontier models. We're talking about prompting, getting response.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing. Like, I think, so one development has been the raw, ability to prompt and loop and whatever to find vulnerabilities in software, right? That's one thing. I think there is also starting to be signals around like exploitation that happens that is actually agentic, like that is driven by an agentic loop, making decisions, like, continuing the exploitation, carrying out the exploitation.
Yeah.
That's kind of a separate thing. And I think that's like further behind the curve in terms of like what is currently happening and what's coming. But I think there are starting to be signals of that being in effect.
So just so I'm clear, you think we're going to get to a universe where there's going to be agents basically executing the entire kill chain. They're going to do the entire probe for open source. Then they're going to do the entire reconnaissance, then the attack, exploitation, and exfiltration. You think that whole thing is going to get to a point where it's automated by agents at some point?
Yeah, 100%. I do think I do think that. Yeah, I think like just like everything else kind of steps up, the human operation steps up a layer of abstraction in terms of what it controls and how it operates. I think the same thing is going to happen here.
Fascinating.
I think that's happening in like there's lab environments that is happening in. Like this is part of it's part of the research. It's part of like both academic and corporate research you can find. There's some papers from some of the frontier labs that indicate that they've seen activity that they think looks like this, like Anthropic had one. I think we talked about it in an episode a while ago.
Yes, we did.
And yeah, like just in my own experience, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be the case that things would progress this way.
But see, what's interesting, let me pause you right there because, and this is going to be a recurrent thing with everything I say, probably basically everyone's going to get like 1 point out of me in this episode, sorry. But tokens cost money. So what you're basically saying is that these agentic, basically the cost of exploitation using an agent is going to go up as well. Unless I guess you build your own model and just host your own model doing it. But then...
Yeah, that's an aspect of the conversation I don't know a ton about. To like the, my experience definitely leads more towards like using hosted models for sure. I haven't tried a lot myself using the self-hosted ones in this space. Yeah. I think you also have to think like there's different profiles of attacker that are going to use this stuff differently.
Yes, 100%.
It seems to me like, the profile of attacker that probably gets the most attention is obviously the nation state sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And to them, I think, that they operate at a scale that we are not familiar with, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like their operations involve I assume hundreds to thousands of individual points of compromise. In a way, it's like cheap. It's cheap for them to achieve a compromise for a lot of the operations that they run, a lot of the goals that they have, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because they're targeting systems that are not hardened, not up to date, broad attack surface, whatever. And so just thinking through this, I think in a way they can afford to be more hands off with how things actually go on those systems. And a lot of times they would just be running a playbook, right?
Yes.
Or you can think about like even a lot of the supply chain compromises we've been seeing. These are extremely broad-based compromises, right? You got to be like a particular package.
Yeah.
Single package compromise. This is why the supply chain stuff, I think, has caught a lot of the security mind right now.
Yeah.
Is just how asymmetric it is, right? It's like a single point of compromise. I compromise developer X. I get a package into the supply chain, and then boom, I execute in I don't know, tens of thousands.
I find
even more individual locations. What do I do with that as an operator, as a human operator, like on this operation? You can't, right? And so I think you see with like some of these supply chain things going on, it's like there's almost like too much for the operator to do.
Yep.
Okay, maybe that individual supply chain compromise was part of them trying to do something more targeted. Like they weren't interested in the hundreds of thousands or whatever of like individual points of compromise. Yeah. They were interested in 2 or 3 that they knew they could get through this route, and they zero in that way. But so there's this like scale problem in a lot of these security things that feels like an agentic exploitation approach would really help solve in a way that makes sense for for the attackers.
For the attackers, yeah.
For the offense. And, what I mean?
I do know exactly what you mean. And I think the management of scale is obviously a boon for attackers. And I also think, conversely, it's a massive problem for defense.
Yeah. Actually, there's one more thing this makes me think of that's going to exit the brain if I don't say it. Is that okay?
No, go ahead.
Attackers can also have a speed problem that this helps with, right? Because from like the attacker's perspective, like the longer things take for them, the riskier it is. Because not even just because of like getting noticed or because of getting detected and being like evicted or whatever, but also, things turn off, things get cycled. Yeah. They get rebooted, they get updated, whatever, like a lot of reasons. Right. And so I think there's also like generally for them, I think there are a lot of situations where like faster is better. And, you can't really compete with the speed of like an agentic system.
Well, I was even going to zoom out from that, but yeah. So here's where my thesis comes in. I think the asymmetry and the speed is about to be it's going to throw a lot of companies through a loop, because I agree with you 100%. And I would even take that even further in terms of time to discovery for attackers now is basically I'm running an agent all night and it pops out some vulnerabilities and it pops out a fully formed POC. At the same time, so basically finding 0 days is now basically cheap. That's basically where my brain goes with this is 0 days are now cheaper and cheaper basically.
In some places than others, right? Like a lot of the vulnerability discovery conversation in particular is about source code access.
Yes. Not
exclusively, because there is like fuzzing and blah, blah, blah. Like, there are approaches to doing this without source code access. But in terms of source code access, like to me, one of the big forks in the road here in this whole conversation is for you as a defender, like trying to secure these systems is what is like the source code that I'm dealing with in these systems. Is it out there or is it not?
Yeah, the fork is open source versus closed source, 100%. And that's exactly where I was going to go with this, because basically what you have now is I'm a big corporate entity. I have a mix of open source, closed source. Closed source, I know I can gatekeep that access to that. So I have my own agents.
Ideally, yeah.
Ideally, yes. Ideally, in the philosophical ideal world. I can run agents against that and find vulnerabilities myself. The open source stuff is a different kettle of fish. And obviously most corporates are using some form of open source in their estate, their technical estate.
Yeah, there's probably not a corporation in the world that is especially 100%. Strong, but
So now you can have a 0 day against a third-party library that happens to be open source, and I happen to know it, and you don't. And as a corporation, are you scanning against that? Who's responsible in the open source community for finding those bugs? Right now, we have obviously responsible disclosure. We have this idea that if you find a bug, some random security guy somewhere is basically scanning just for the sake of it. But now tokens cost money, and you've got the asymmetry in time in terms of vulnerability can go from theoretical to literal extremely quickly now. I think we're in for a world of pain personally, because it's a case of, if I know that time has collapsed, but I still, as a corporation, still need to go upstream, find out that this has been exploited, test, create a patch, test it, and then deploy it. I think there's an asymmetry in time of discovery to the time of defense.
Absolutely.
That I think even with all the tokens in the world,
and even sorry, no, you finish. I shouldn't.
No, basically, even with all the tokens in the world, you can't close that gap. And I think it's going to be a bit of a nightmare for corporations. I do have an idea about how they can solve that, but I'm going to let you get your thoughts out. And then you can come back to me.
I was just going to say, and I think it's even like our ideas of responsible disclosure. I don't know that I want to open up like an entire conversation on this, but our ideas of responsible disclosure and how that operates were devised in a different world. Now than the one we live in now, right? Like the timelines that are involved, the like approach to it comes from a world where finding vulnerabilities involves a at least decent amount of manual effort most of the time.
Yes.
There's like a gate in that you need to invest time to find these things. Now, you still need to invest as an attacker, probably, but the investment is quicker. Is it cheaper? Sometimes it's cheaper. Sometimes it's not. It's I think it like depends. Sometimes a manual review could actually find a bug. I think cheaper than than models. Sometimes frontier models at the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
Not all the time, but like I think there are cases where that is possible. But anyway, point is like it feels easier to spend some dollars to find something than to like invest however many hours to find something.
Right.
So I think our idea about, how we as the security community, the open source community, whatever, work through these things, starting to creak,
Oh yeah, it's definitely starting to creak. I think we're in a brand new world. I think because when I look at the ideas behind how we do security, one of the big things was you've got limited resources. No company has infinite resources. And so you have to make your fixes based on priority. Part of the whole argument we had with the way we built CVSS version 2, again, inside baseball, that's just how we rate vulnerabilities in the technical security community, was it's a prioritization exercise. That's basically what it is, really. The reason why you care about your criticals, highs, mediums, and lows is because you also use that as your North Star in terms of guiding you about which bug do I fix first. And
prioritization is not simple. Not a simple problem.
It is not a linear problem at all. It's not simple at all. But now, if you've got, and then you would build your risk management process on top of that. It would be, okay, which are the high priority bugs? Where are we going to get the resources from to fix them? And then when do we do that? And when do we roll it out? And what knock on, if any, does that have on the rest of our product and our engagement and the people who rely on us downstream from us? Now, well, if you've got vulnerabilities that are with an open source framework, for example, so they're public, all those vulnerabilities you risk accepted because you didn't think they were reachable inside of your, or whatever reason. Every company tended, if you had a decent, half decent security strategy, you would tailor your risk management framework to meet the needs of your business and not just take one off the shelf. But now those are basically business logic type vulnerabilities at that point. You've all kind of classed them. You look at them through the lens of your business logic, basically, and what your business is doing and which one could affect your business the most. They're all high priorities as far as I'm concerned, because this is for open source access.
Oh, okay.
Specifically for open source, not much closed source. I think closed source has.
You're saying like a corporation feeding open source vulnerability findings into its process?
No, what I'm saying is a corporation that consumes open source code, and that open source, but at the same time, that open source code has vulnerabilities. They're known, and they just they prioritize them low for whatever reasons.
Okay.
They're like, okay, the impact radius of this being exploited is this.
And you're saying that's different now because
I think it's different now because
it was
everything
easier to discover. Those vulnerabilities easier to discover,
easier to exploit. They're already discovered most of the times, right? Because at the end of the day, or even so, you've got open access.
And what's made them easier to exploit?
Because now you've basically got all these models in that you've incentivized attackers to exploit these vulnerabilities, especially if they can chain them. Because I just need to throw tokens at them, as opposed to I need to have some inside knowledge in terms of how this library works or what it's being used.
Yeah, I think that there's like like everything else with AI, there's like a democratization narrative here, right? Like
100%.
I mean, I think that applies both to your idea of like, well, is there a difference between security engineers and other engineers? Like, I think there's a democratization there in that, engineers can use, are more capable of using security tools and all that now as well. But yeah, I think from the attacker's perspective, there's also democratization of techniques, of skills, of like
and so then
addressability.
So then my brain immediately jumps to, as a corporate, how do I handle this? Because I've now got all these vulnerabilities on my, for example, on my risk register that I've risk accepted every so often. Do I have to get rid of all of them? Do I have to close all these findings out? Is that even possible?
And you don't think like, I mean, I don't know. It's likely not feasible. I mean, maybe you use AI to do it,
This is now, there we go. And that's the next logical conclusion. So now it's okay. But yes, as much as the bad actors have these tools, I have these tools. So I can just now be scanning. So then my thought is, here's the crazy thought I had before I let you jump in.
Let me hear it.
Okay, well, if cheap code is cheap to produce and I'm using all these open source libraries, how about I just replace the open source libraries with closed source equivalents and then run AI bots, AI agents.
Code a little bit.
Because
maybe.
now I don't.
Hey, I don't know. So here's. No, you finish. I'll stop.
That's it. Basically, I feel like if you're trying to minimize the risk, but again, I'm spending tokens. So if I'm trying to minimize the risk from these open source, I think again, the big fork in the road is open source versus closed source. We'll get to closed source in a sec. But with open source, if I've got all these libraries that I'm scared of, with all these open vulnerabilities that now AI agents can be used to create vulnerabilities and even get quicker to exploit, and I've got this asymmetry in time that I'm never going to be able to surmount, how about I just close off that risk completely and we just build everything in-house? We've got all these agents who can spin up code, and we now just supplant those open source libraries with our own closed source versions.
Okay, we'll talk about that for sure, because I like the spiciness of the take. Absolutely. So I think a lot of people, it does seem to be like in my conversations with people and in reading stuff and articles and whatever, the current idea seems to be people think that like the long arc of this bends towards the defender's benefit. That seems to be what, I don't know, in terms of me trying to read the vibe. It does seem to be like most people are saying that the long arc of this bends towards the benefit of the defender.
I'd love to hear how.
Me too, because I'm not 100% sure I agree with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Or I feel much more like reserved in making a judgment about where things are going to go. Because I think there's a lot of like butterfly effect style things where there's ways things are going to change in response to AI that like crack open some completely new horizons that we haven't even thought of. Obviously,
yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
But okay, and I think one reason why is people think, okay, well, the defenders have the ability to apply AI tools earlier than the attackers do.
Yes,
like from if you're looking at like the meta of the game, the defenders can apply the AI tools to their code pre-release.
Yes.
Right. And, other things being equal, if everybody has equal access to these models, or even the defenders maybe have a leg up because they're on some special program from the frontier models with unlocked stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
Net, that should benefit the defenders because they're earlier.
That's interesting.
From a code perspective, from like a vulnerability discovery and code perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the argument.
Okay.
And I see that.
I see that, but I also see a problem with it.
Yeah, well, so tell me.
Well, it benefits those who have the most resources. Automatically excludes a whole bunch. If you're
it's costly.
It's costly. If you're a 5-person startup with X amount of burn, you don't want to be spending most of it. Basically, it becomes way more expensive to release a product into the world that is secure.
Yeah, I mean, you can think like every what about taxes on stuff, right? Every PR is going to have X amount of cost for doing an agentic AI assisted security review of it, right?
Yeah,
and that's probably going to get more and more complex over time.
Yeah,
because vulnerabilities aren't necessarily just static, I look at line of code and see overflow or whatever, right? Like they can be more complicated than that.
Yeah, 100%.
So certainly there's a cost aspect, and that's kind of an anti-democratization force here, right?
Exactly.
Things get stratified by cost. Some approaches, the cutting edge approaches, which you need to defend against, actors operating at scale, are going to be available to some and not to others. Yeah. So
100%.
Sure. I think that's a fair criticism of it.
I think that's a very big deal, because part of the engine,
and you have that cost even if you're using local models, because you still have to pay for the compute, you still have to keep a system to do it, you still like whatever, right?
Yeah, you have that cost, and I think that's a very big deal, because part of the success of the internet was that it was cheap to get your ideas out there. It democratized things out there. Obviously, we've talked about how Web 2 has basically become polarized in terms of these large centralized platforms. This ironically enough kind of supports that again. It goes into, and it breaks my brain a little bit, because the reason why it breaks my brain, sorry, I can see you got a thought, is because one of the things I've always discussed in corporate spaces is I've always seen, again, security departments as part of the support infra. Like they're there with HR, they're not basically direct in line of the product, unless you're a security company, of course, or you're in a regulated,
it's not a profit center.
It's not a profit center. It's always been one of those things. And a CISO's nightmare is demonstrate return on investment. I don't even know to this day how CISOs have dodged that question. But basically, now I feel like security is going to almost bulge out of that, whereas you can see people getting more productive in other support orgs, HR, UX, UI, research, R&D, and things like that. Those are going to obviously kind of get more productive with the addition of AI-enabled tooling. Security is going to become X amount more expensive, but I don't see it getting more productive. It's just trying to keep up and maintain the status quo. That's how
that's the thing, right? Like
I extrapolate it out.
I think there is a sense in which security on net does not have productivity breakthroughs, because the tools increase the productivity of both sides of the equation.
Yeah, exactly. We've talked about this a lot. The more bugs you find, the more you got to fix.
As things shift, like as the meta shifts, one side can be advantaged or the other side can be advantaged, depending. But yeah, there is a sense in which, like, at a core, because it is like an adversarial thing, it's tough to demonstrate that like things are getting better. But yeah, I think so that's certainly one aspect. But I think there's like, if I think about the long term meta of this, there's countervailing forces that give attackers advantages, I think. So like, overall volume of code being produced is increased. No question, right?
Yep.
And so overall amount of vulnerabilities increase as well, obviously.
Yeah.
I think that I think that the speed part of the equation is huge. Like defenders need time to notice, to detect, to notice. There's like long pipelines of logs being produced and ingested and analyzed and alerted on and responded to and whatever. There's a lot of time there. Which in a manual world, the time difference, matters, but it's not as compressed.
Yeah.
So I think, that's another aspect. I don't know. I'm just not as sure what the twists and turns are of who like ultimately.
Yeah, because I see how you're framing it. You're basically like, on a long enough time horizon, who comes out ahead here? And I'm not even trying to think of it like that. I'm trying to think of, on a long enough time horizon, what are we supposed to do while we're traveling along it? That's kind of the way that's where my brain's like. I'm like, how is this going to affect my fellow security professionals in terms of large corporate spaces? How does this affect closed source versus open source argument? Who does this pro bono, who benefits? One of the things I'm starting to realize why I found the Mythos marketing a little bit cynical is because they did this math, obviously. This conversation, they've already done this math and said, hey, let's market to the engineers and be like, don't worry, run Mythos and your security department can kind of go the way of the dinosaur type thing, because now you're raw security engineers. And I think that's kind of the cynicism I picked up on in this as well. It's like, but that's not going to work, because as I said, I genuinely think your brain, I'm not saying one person can't be two at the same time. I'm saying, yes, security people build stuff and people who build stuff think about security. I just say they don't do it at the same time. And that introduces time. It introduces a lag, and it introduces time, and it introduces complexity because you change one thing to fix another, and then something else happens downstream. So I'm just trying to figure out along this, as we go along this arc of time where security AI becomes more embedded in your security strategy, a given security strategy, how is that going to affect what we've already built, which is risk management processes, rating mechanisms, frameworks for fixing software security, secure software development lifecycle, all of that jazz. Does it matter anymore? And if it does, how does it change? That's kind of where I'm going. And all I can see is token spend. Like, I keep coming down to this lowest common denominator of, okay, the attacker can spend, but so can I as a defender. But that costs money. And people are already, apparently, in the media, you're seeing Microsoft, you're seeing Uber, you're seeing, I'm hearing Airbnb's just basically using its own locally hosted models because they were like, I'm not jumping into this rat race at all. I've spun up my own agent just to experiment and see what it's like. And I, for example, one of the things was building skills, right, to make it do stuff. And obviously everyone tells you, do not go to certain skills hubs because 50% of them have been found to have certain stuff. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I'll just build my own skills. Oh, so why do we need these hubs in the first place if everyone's got these agents? I've literally built my own skills and I've been able to harden them myself. Obviously, I come from a technical background, so I'm able to go through the Python script, the Bash scripts as well, to be able to double check exactly what's happening. But I have literally hardened my own AI agent myself without the need to ever go to one of these basically skills hubs. And I was like, oh, corporates are just going to do the same, but you're still spending tokens to do that. So that's where I think the cost thing is now the major argument. I'm like, okay, so is it one of those things where you're going to go to A16Z with a term sheet and they're going to be like, here's X amount of tokens for you because that's what you really need. I'm not sure you need money for salaries or even an office, right? That's extreme, but you get my point, right?
Yeah. No, I do get your point. I mean, part of me wants to say that, like, I think reducing everything to token spend is, I don't know, too reductive.
It is. It feels weird. I feel like I'm missing some other stuff.
Yeah.
Which is why I wanted to have this conversation.
I think you can talk a bit about like efficiency of token spend. And this is, I think, another way that like people make the like long arc benefiting defenders thing is like defenders are able to spend tokens more efficiently than attackers because defenders have more information and context about their environment than the attackers do. And like a big part of token efficiency is like what context you can make available to you know, make that token spend more efficient, right?
Agreed.
You can find issues quicker or fix them quicker, whatever, because it has internal context, internal knowledge.
Yep.
That's not available to the attacker, then you know, that benefits the defender.
How does it benefit? Is it benefit in terms of speed, or does it benefit in terms of resiliency, in terms of like it definitely benefits, but I'm like, are those benefits tangible? That's kind of where I'm like,
I think they're tangible. I mean, I think in terms like, you know, this is like the closed source versus open source thing we're talking about with code. Like it's certainly tangible. Like, you know, if I have a product and it's a closed source product and you set me in a race with an attacker to find issue X, and we have an equal token budget, who's going to find it first?
Yeah, you.
Probably me, because I have access to the source code, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I think there's also benefit if you think about like detection and response. I think it's like you tend to know what normal is in your environment better than an attacker does. So if you're doing like a cat and mouse thing, probably might benefit the defender. I'm like maybe a bit less sure about that one. So yeah, I think that's kind of where it's coming from. Yeah, but that's different in the open source world, of which like a significant part of Web3 is in the open source world because of, you know, smart contracts, right?
Yeah.
Which we haven't really talked about yet, but it's fine.
I mean, no, let's go on to it because I've presented my case in terms of what I think in general, but let's zoom in onto the Web3 thing because
I guess, you know, we talked last episode. I think we opened with like June. No, not June. What's the month before June?
May. The darling buds of May.
May being one of the busiest months. April and May, really, I think, being one of the like biggest months in terms of raw number of Web3 security events that were happening. Also in terms of amounts. But like, you know, the raw like, it just felt like every week, every day even sometimes.
Definitely.
there was some new event happening.
Yeah.
And I think it's very tempting to say that AI is part of that.
I mean,
it's certainly part of it. And it's part of it that, like, there's multiple reasons why it's part of it. Part of it is because it's part of everything now. Like, you're not going to do vulnerability. Like, if you're, I don't know, it's a bit strong, but like, you're not going to do vulnerability discovery without AI now, right? So you don't really have like, you know what I mean? Like, part of it is just because it's part of everything, but also, 100%. So I'm sure that a lot of these smart contract vulnerabilities were discovered agentically using AI assistants. Absolutely. And I think there's even, indications people have pointed to in different individual attacks that support that. So like, inspecting the payloads and finding like fingerprints of like AI generated code. I think was some things that happened. I know there was like recently there was a disclosure from was it Orchard? That was the name of the protocol, I think. Orchard. There was like a security researcher who disclosed something to this protocol. And it was like, I forget exactly what the details were, but it was like one prompt or something that he used to find it. And he was like, here's this vulnerability. Okay. So I'm sure a lot of these smart contract vulnerabilities were discovered agentically using AI assistants, whatever. And I think even in individual events that have happened in crypto, people have seen indications of there being AI assistants in the construction of these attacks.
Yeah,
right?
agreed.
So people point to like log messages in smart contract code that's part of the payload that you probably wouldn't leave in there if you were actually doing an attack, but like you've vibe coded your whole attack, so you just like run with what it generates.
Yep. Even debug messages in some instances as well, where it's
exactly. Yeah, print line.
Yep.
print F here or whatever.
Yeah. And so. But I do find it interesting because, again, coming back to the constant point I harping on about earlier is in terms of they who spend the most tokens tends to win, but you've got the asymmetry. But I also find it interesting to see that with AI, with the advent of AI vulnerabilities in security models, with the advent of AI and now people have to account for that in their security models, I kind of feel like if every vulnerability is an actionable vulnerability, then how do you prioritize anymore? And so that's kind of why I'm like, I feel for security departments, because I genuinely think it's going to change I think you and I have discussed this offline. I think it's going to change the shape of security departments. I don't think it makes security any less important. In fact, I think it makes it more important now in some ways in terms of any setting, not just corporate setting, open source settings and things like that. I think it makes the problem of security harder. I think it raises the cost, as I harped on about earlier in this podcast. And I think we're going to have to be very considered about how we do security going forward. It's not so much as plug this tool in and cover off this chain of attacks or this group of vulnerabilities. It's going to be more, okay, this exists, this vulnerability is existing in our platform, and how reachable is it? And if it is reachable, regardless of its priority, regardless of its CVSS level or its risk rating, it is going to be exploitable. And so now you have to kind of operate in this world where basically everything's exploitable, which I think is kind of a hard world to operate in when you're a large platform.
Yeah. I don't know if I quite jumped to the everything is exploitable level of it. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that? Like,
what do I mean by that? It's
like
so
we will get to a place where you will generate lots of findings. Mm-hmm. If you scan your code base or something, it will generate lots of findings, and all of those will be real issues.
I think there'll be more
exploitable issues to some degree.
Yeah. So effectively, if you think about your standard pen testing cycle, you basically prioritize the ones that are the ones that are A, going to have the highest impact, B, easiest to exploit. And then the more difficult and esoteric ones, you don't really spend time building a POC. Because remember, security programs are just resource management exercises, really. You don't have 10 pen testers to work on this thing infinitely. So you have this locked bursts of time. And so you basically prioritize that, because there's the flip side of that equation is, out of those security assessments, you've got people who need to fix, and they've got other things they could be doing. They could be actually improving your platform in another way that's meaningfully bringing in ROI rather than defending. So when I say everything's exploitable, yes, it's hyperbolic, but basically what I'm saying is the way we prioritize vulnerabilities and security in the corporate spaces is a resource management exercise. But now you're going to spend more resources because more of those vulnerabilities technically are exploitable. So basically, you've got more vulns on your deck than used to. Really, is what it boils down to. Obviously, reachability is a genuine factor, but at the same time, again, then we start going back to what I was saying earlier about the open source thing as well, and people going to be scanning open source libraries. I read an interesting point 2 months ago or so, a month ago, where Linus basically stopped taking PR requests because he was like, so many of them are AI generated, it's becoming meaningless. Well, it's not meaningless, but yeah, you can't prioritize now because you're overwhelmed and you don't know how to sort the wheat from the chaff. So basically you just shut off the queue. Is that the best way to handle this? I don't know, but it's now prioritization and resource management is a much bigger issue in security, and it makes it by definition inside a corporation more expensive endeavor as well, in my opinion. So that's kind of what I mean by, I'm not trying to, again, it did sound a bit hyperbolic when I said everything's exploitable. What I'm saying is not everything's exploitable, but not everything it requires attention, so to speak. Now all of your vulnerabilities are a priority. When everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, as they like to say. So it's kind of when we're in this weird situation right now. But I guess, and the easiest answer is just spend more tokens. But I don't know. I'm repeating myself a bit now, but yeah, that's kind of where I kind of got to with it.
I think, I think I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the complexity of exploiting things for an attacker has gone down.
Mm-hmm.
And, the complexity that any particular attacker or threat can handle has gone up. Like the capacity to handle that complexity has gone up, and use that complexity has gone up.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of like, what do you do from here? Is the answer just spend more tokens? I think that's the kind of immediate patch answer. I think I'm curious whether and how. Yeah, so I think people would say spend more tokens for sure. they would also use the classic shift left. Verbiage
that we've been hearing for a decade.
Which I mean, sure, right, but I think probably their idea of that is to shift token spend left, so that your token spend is maybe more efficient compared to the attacker, which is something we talked about, right? The efficiency of token spend for defenders versus attackers.
Yeah.
But I'm curious whether there are going to be I feel like with coding, with software development, with programming, right? Raw just coding.
Yeah.
It's not what it's going to be in a few years.
No.
Our technologies. Wow, I don't like that I just said that word. I'm thinking about things like the jump from compiled to interpreted languages, right?
Yeah.
Or the jump from memory unsafe to memory safe languages, right? Those are defensive. Those are defensive revolutions that happened in technology design, and particularly in program language design, that change the meta of the game, for defenders and attackers, right? And those changes, those developments, those meta changes occurred in response to pressures, right? Technological pressures, or even offensive pressures, or quality control pressures or whatever, in terms of jumping from memory unsafe to memory safe languages. Or, with the shift from compiled to interpreted languages, that was in response to, I mean, I don't know, I'm just yapping. I don't actually know what it was in response to, but it was what unlocked it was, more compute being available.
I think it was, that's what I was about to say.
Compute power being available, so you don't need to compile everything. And
it was more RAM. RAM became cheaper, I'm pretty sure.
So, in language design, we haven't had the next jump in response to like the pressures that are circulating around.
I see where you're going with this
AI.
Yeah.
But we will, right? And I have no idea what it's like.
Yeah.
Like we will have that jump, and it will change the meta for offense and defense.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think, spend more tokens, spend those tokens further left, or whatever. Gosh. Is practically what you can do now, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess.
But I don't think it's what you're going to be doing,
5 years from now.
Yeah, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, whatever.
I think that's a fair conclusion to get to. I do think that's a fair conclusion to get to. It doesn't make our present any less scarier right now and any less expensive as well. Basically, the price of security professionals has just gone up. That's kind of the way I see it.
Because of the token spend?
Yeah, because of the token spend. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to push I can't see you repurposing your programmers to become security engineers just because they have access to the same tooling, because you need them to actually extend the platform and the feature set. So at the end of the day, you're going to still have your security engineers, you're still going to have your software engineers, your back-end engineers, your front-end engineers, or maybe using the same tool that's trained on different data or smaller language models, or maybe they build their own their own training data set, whatever. But point is, you're still going to need them, and you're going to need them more than ever, and you probably might need them almost as a function of however big your platform is. It's probably a mathematical formula. If your platform is this big, you need to spend X amount on securing it. As simple as that, as opposed to what are your risks? Give me a budget, which is what normal CISOs tend to say now. Okay, I think that's a great hit to pause it. By my account, I think we've gone over the 50-minute mark.
Probably.
But yeah, I want to say thank you to everyone who's listened to this, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to check out other episodes where we discuss topics such as the CETUS compromise and its on-chain consequences, or what happens when Sony tries to enforce its IP protections on-chain. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out when our next episode drops, and feel free to tell a friend to tell a friend.